The radio on the wall wakes me before the alarm does. Not with words, not yet, just with that faint background hiss that rises and falls when the signal starts to warm up. I open my eyes in the dark and stare at the concrete ceiling a few inches above my nose. The glow of the red digital clock next to the bunk shows 3:09 a.m. I reach out, tap the side of the clock to make sure I am not misreading it, then roll onto my side and stare at the old military radio rack across the small room. Every meter of cable that someone carefully zip-tied along the metal frame is still exactly where it has been for the past 8 nights. Every knob is exactly where I left it. The speaker still looks harmless. None of that helps. I sit up, feet on the cold floor, and wait for 3:11 a.m. to arrive. The generator is idling somewhere below, steady and dull. I started it at midnight to make sure the batteries would have enough charge to carry the system through the transmission. There is a faint smell of diesel and metal dust in the air, mixed with the stale paper smell of the maps that cover the far wall. I breathe through my nose, slow and shallow, counting the seconds in my head. The bunker always feels smaller at this hour. The ceiling seems lower, the walls closer. The single bare bulb over the map table throws a pale circle of light on the grid lines and coordinate marks. The rest of the bunker is darkness and corners. I glance at the ladder that leads up to the hatch. The steel wheel is dogged shut, same as every night. The pressure bar hangs in the notch. For now. 3:10 a.m. rolls over on the clock. My hand is already on the pencil. The notebook lies open on the map table, the last 8 days of coordinates written in neat block letters down the page, each with a small arrow drawn over to a point on the map. The arrows form a trail across the printed contour lines. 8 days ago, the first coordinate landed here, in the hills to the west. Each night, 3:11 a.m., the voice from the radio spoke a new set. Each night, the mark moved. At first, the line curved through the valley. Then it straightened. Now the last mark is less than half an inch from the small red circle I drew around this bunker's location. 3 more nights, maybe 4, at the pace that line is closing in. That is what my head keeps repeating. 3 more nights, maybe 4. The clock flicks over to 3:11 a.m., and the speaker pops. Not loud, just a little crack in the silence, like someone testing a microphone in a long, empty hall. I grip the pencil hard enough that the wood creaks and lean over the map table, eyes on the notebook but ears on the wall. A long burst of static rolls through the room, then clears. The voice is male, mid-range, flat. No accent I can place. It always starts the same way. Grid broadcast, November sector, pass 1, stand by. The words spill out of the speaker in a bored, practiced tone. I have listened to them so many times that my mind starts to move along with them. I do not hear any background noise. No engines, no other voices, no wind. Whoever is speaking might as well be in a capsule outside the world. The pencil point rests above the last coordinate in the notebook. The radio hisses again. Then the numbers come. 34.92 north, 118.71 west. Confirm. 34.92 north, 118.71 west. Mark. My hand moves on its own. I write the numbers, double-check, then carry them across to the map. The laminated surface shines under the bulb. I run my finger along the grid, line up the pencil with the scale, and make the smallest dot I can manage where latitude and longitude cross. The new dot lands almost directly on the red circle. I blink, check again, then reach for the transparent ruler and line it up more carefully. The difference between the coordinate and my circle is maybe 50 yards, maybe less, depending on how honest the original survey was when the map was printed. My throat feels dry. I swallow and reach for the Sharpie I used to mark the bunker's position on the first night. My hand pauses halfway. I do not draw anything. I just set the marker down and step back from the table. Pass complete. November sector clear. Repeat. November sector clear. End of broadcast. The speaker clicks. The static slides back down, thinning to a faint hiss, then to nothing. The radio's small green power light remains on. It never turns off during the night cycle. Outside, the world is still whatever the world is now, but in here, for a moment, nothing moves. I stare at the map, then look over at the rack of radios again. There are 4 in total, stacked one above another. 2 long-range sets, 1 local unit, and a shortwave receiver. All of them are wired into the same antenna patch panel. All of them are tuned, more or less, to the same family of frequencies. I did not change that. The dead officers who used this place before the outbreak had a system, and from the logbooks I found, they trusted it. I came in later. I am the guest here. November sector clear, I repeat under my breath. Then let the words die. Clear of what? Infected? Survivors? Contamination? The signal has never said. It is the coordinates that matter. 8 nights ago, the voice was 2 valleys away. Now the coordinates are almost on top of this hill. The rational part of my head lays out the possibilities in neat order. 1. A surviving military unit is sweeping the region in a slow grid, broadcasting its position as it moves. 2. An automated system, some drone or unattended ground vehicle, is stuck in a loop, endlessly calling out its path. 3. Something else, something I do not fully understand and I should not trust at all. I close the notebook, slide it to the side, and kill the generator to save fuel. The sudden silence presses in from every direction. My ears ring for a few seconds, then adjust. The emergency lights stay on, drawing from the battery bank. Their dim orange glow leaves the corners of the bunker in shadow, but that is fine. I know every bolt and panel down here now. I swing my feet back onto the bunk and sit, elbows on my knees, listening to the quiet. Somewhere above, settled soil rests against reinforced concrete. Above that, the hillside, stripped bare by the storm that exposed the hatch. Above that, the night and whatever walks in it. When I first found this place, the hatch was just a dark circle in a mess of sliding mud and roots. The storm had ripped a chunk of the slope away 3 days after the city failed. I had been moving along the old service road looking for anything that could block a car, something to turn into a barrier, when the road itself ended in a broken edge and a drop into chaos. I almost walked past it. The steel was covered in dirt and branches. Only the wheel handle caught my eye. The metal scraped clean where the slide had torn across it. I remember standing there in the rain, staring down at the hatch, trying to decide if this was real or some leftover thing my mind was inventing to feel safer. Then another section of mud collapsed, and the choice made itself. The hatch door stood out in the fresh slide, a solid, unmoving circle in a world that would not stop breaking apart. I cleared it with my hands, slipping and swearing under my breath as more mud tried to fill the gap. The wheel handle did not move at first. It had not been spun in years, maybe decades. Rust had bitten into the threads. I wiped my palms on my jeans, set both hands on the metal, and leaned my weight into it in short, hard bursts. It gave a fraction at a time, with small scraping sounds that were lost under the rain. When the locking dogs finally released and the hatch opened, a stale gust of air pushed up past my face. It smelled of dry paper, dust, and metal, but no decay. No wet rot, no smoke, no bodies. That smell alone was enough to drag me down the ladder. The bunker has 3 levels. Top level, entry chamber, decontamination room, storage racks along the walls. Middle level, living quarters, map room, radios, a small infirmary, and a kitchen that looks like a cross between a diner and a barracks. Bottom level, generator room, fuel tanks, a water treatment setup, and a corridor that ends in a heavy blast door marked Tunnel Access Restricted. That last door is still locked. I stand outside it sometimes with my ear to the steel and listen. I have never heard a sound from the other side, but that does not mean there is nothing beyond it. It only means this door is thick. The first day down here was inventory. Adrenaline jolted me fast through the aisles, but the habits my father drilled in me slowed my hands. He had been a mechanic, not a soldier, but he always said that tools that are not counted are tools that vanish. So I counted. Canned food, around 6 months' worth for one person, if I ration. Medical supplies, enough for serious injuries if I keep my hands steady and the wounds clean. Radios, 4 operational, 1 stripped for parts. Fuel, diesel tanks half full, with a handwritten note taped to the gauge that read, "Do not run below quarter unless evac confirmed." AVAC was not confirmed. Evac was dust. I allowed myself a grim laugh at that, then tore the note off and pocketed it without really knowing why. It sits in my back pocket now, folded and worn. A small promise to no one in particular that I would not be stupid with the generator. The second day, I found the map room and the logbooks. The walls in here are covered in regional maps, some pre-digital, printed on heavy paper, some more recent satellite prints laminated to survive handling. The logbooks sit in a metal locker, lined up by year and unit. From what I can piece together, this bunker was one of a network of continuity of government sites, a place for certain officials and staff to disappear to if the worst ever came. Nuclear war, bioterrorism, that sort of thing. The outbreak does not match most of the scenarios written in neat military language across those pages, but there are enough similarities that the installations mattered anyway, or would have mattered. The last log entry is from 6 months before the first cases hit the news. After that, silence. Maybe funding died. Maybe planners shifted focus somewhere else. Maybe the people meant to use this place never made it here when everything collapsed. Whatever the reason, the bunker waited. I flip through one of the old logbooks now, even though I have read it a dozen times. The major who had command here wrote in a compact, precise hand. Every fuel delivery is recorded. Every radio test is broken down into call sign, frequency, response time. A small note in the margin on one page catches my eye again. Auto broadcast protocol for perimeter sweeps remains untested. Recommends simulation. The page is dated 10 years ago. The system he mentioned might be the same one speaking on the radio now, or it might be an ancestor, some earlier version. I run my thumb over the ink and imagine the major sitting at this same table, under a newer bulb, annoyed about a drill that never quite happened. His annoyance is dust now. His protocol is not. It is out there, walking closer at a pace that does not hurry or slow. On the third night after I moved in, the first 3:11 a.m. broadcast rolled through the bunker. At that point, I was still sleeping with my boots on, waking at every small noise. The radio had been left on, volume halfway. I jolted up at the static and stumbled into the map room with my flashlight in one hand and a crowbar in the other, as if those things could do anything about a voice in the wall. When the coordinates came, I grabbed the nearest scrap of paper and scribbled them down. Habit made me find them on the map. Habit made me mark the dot. The location was far enough away that my shoulders eased without me thinking about it. Some patrol out there, I told myself. Some system still doing what it was told. By the fourth night, I had the notebook open and the pencil ready in advance. By the fifth, I realized the pattern. Since then, days have followed a rhythm. Wake up with the light, check the hatch, listen at the seams for any sound from outside. Run through the bunker's systems, water, power, air circulation. Rotate the canned goods forward. Note expiration dates just to have something clear to do. Then shut off everything that does not absolutely need to run and ration my quiet hours. Read old manuals. Practice with the shortwave receiver. See if any other human voices cut through the static wall from time to time. Once every 2 or 3 days, if it feels safe, climb the ladder, crack the hatch an inch, and listen. If the wind carries no distant groans, no dragging feet, and no engines, open it fully and step out for a quick sweep of the immediate area. The hill is mostly bare now. The mudslide stripped it down to stone and thin soil. I can see farther than I could when the trees still stood. That is both blessing and curse. Today, when the red dot on the map lands on top of my bunker's circle, the routine tilts. There is no denying it now. Whoever is out there knows this grid square, possibly this exact hill. The question that circles in my head is simple. Are those coordinates a warning or a promise? Does November sector clear mean cleared of infected and ready for occupation, or cleared of all life, hostile and otherwise? The answer matters a lot more when you are the only life in the sector that you know about. I put the logbook back, stand up, and head for the ladder. The climb to the hatch is short, 12 metal rungs in a narrow shaft. The air grows cooler as I go, touched by the chill that seeps down from the soil. I pause with my hand on the wheel, listening. The night above is still dark. I keep all the clocks in the bunker set to the old local time, even though the concept of time zones means less with no flights or schedules. It gives structure. According to the clock, dawn is still 3 hours away. I press my ear to the steel. Nothing. No scrape, no moan, no crackle of a nearby fire. Just the steady, distant hush of wind moving through open spaces. I spin the wheel slowly, lifting each dog from its notch with care. The hatch opens a fraction, and a blade of cold air slides in, carrying the raw smell of wet soil. I sniff. No rot. That is good enough. I push the hatch open and step up into the night. The stars are sharper now that the city is dark. The hilltop is a broken circle of rock and mud under the sky. I stand near the hatch, scanning, and let my eyes adjust. The valley below lies in layers of black and gray. In the far distance, a dull orange haze marks where the city still smolders. No active flames tonight. Either the rain put them out, or there is nothing left to burn. I pull the small monocular from my jacket pocket and raise it, sweeping slowly across the landscape. The old service road is a pale line in the darkness, cutting along the hillside before vanishing into shadows. The collapsed section where the mudslide took it is a jagged scar. Beyond that, the slopes descend into the valley, where a strip mall, some gas stations, and a cluster of houses still stand in uneven silhouettes. I check each in turn for movement. Sometimes, when the wind is right, I can hear the infected below. Not words, just scattered sounds, a broken door banging, glass crunching under shuffling feet, an occasional cry that starts human and ends wrong. Tonight, there is only the wind and the dry rustle of debris as it shifts. The infected could be in the far streets, or behind building walls, or wandering somewhere I cannot see. They do not vanish, They wander until something stops them. I learned that in the city, watching from rooftops as the herd moved through empty avenues, bumping into parked cars and walls until some new noise turned their heads. Out here, there are fewer hard surfaces for them to hit. They spread out along the open ground, harder to track until they are close. That is part of why the bunker appealed to me. Concrete around, bedrock below, one controlled point of entry. I turn my eyes upward instead and look for any trace of aircraft. The broadcasts sound clean and strong. That implies decent power and a clear antenna. A ground vehicle could manage that if the antenna is tall enough, but my gut leans towards something higher. A rotary wing craft maybe, flying a slow pattern. A drone is possible too. Some of the documents in the bunker mention unmanned platforms. I scan the sky until the cold starts to bite through my jacket. No running lights. No silhouettes cutting across the stars. No faint chop of blades. Either the platform is below the ridgeline somewhere, or it is farther away than the clarity of the broadcast suggests. Or the transmission power is higher than I first thought. All of this matters because if someone can see this hill from the air, then this hill is no longer just a safe hole in the ground. It is a mark on a screen. I duck back down into the bunker and close the hatch, sealing the dogs carefully. I spin the wheel one extra turn until the metal gives a small protest, then stop. Paranoia is a survival tool now, not an insult. Back in the map room, I stand in front of the wall and let my eyes travel along the line of coordinates again. The pattern is not perfectly straight, but close. It arcs in a gentle curve that matches the valley floor, following the easiest flight path if someone were hugging a certain altitude. The speed, based on the nightly positions, is slow. If it is a helicopter, it is hovering or creeping. If it is a ground vehicle, it is using deliberate, methodical movement. The most important new fact is this. Unless the route changes, tomorrow night the coordinates will overshoot this hill and move past it. Which means tonight is either the moment of contact or the last time whatever this is passes near enough to matter. I force myself to frame it in simple terms. I have three main options. 1. Stay quiet, stay dark, and let the path go past, hoping that the person or system broadcasting never knows I am here. 2. Try to answer the transmission, reveal myself, and see if whoever is on the other end is friend, threat, or something in between. 3. Leave the bunker before 3:11 a.m. tomorrow and move away from the track entirely, giving up this safe base for the sake of uncertainty somewhere else. The third option sits wrong. The bunker is one of the few solid advantages I have. Giving it up based on a guess feels reckless. The first option leans on fear, on doing nothing while the world moves. The second option is the riskiest in the short term, and the only one that might provide real information. The truth is, I am tired of building my life on guesses. That thought alone nudges me toward the radio microphone. The main long-range set has a push-to-talk handset hanging from a hook. The cable coils down in a tidy loop, untouched for years. I take it off the hook and feel the stiffness of the rubber. Before I press anything, I move to the power panel and check the settings. The generator is off, but the batteries have enough stored charge for a short transmission. I flip the standby switch to active. The power light shifts from green to a brighter hue. The speaker hisses again, softer now that the scheduled broadcast is over. My finger hovers over the transmit button on the handset. A thought cuts through the haze. If the broadcast is automated, there may be no one listening at all. If it is crewed, then there is at least one trained operator monitoring the channel. A human mind, a possible ally, or a danger. The line between those two is thinner now than it used to be. I take a breath, adjust the microphone closer to my mouth, and press the button. The hiss in the speaker dips as the transmitter engages. "This is," I start, then stop. Giving a name over the air feels wrong. I try again. "This is an occupied shelter in your November sector. Coordinates approximate 34.92 north, 118.71 west." The words come out steady, despite the tightness in my throat. "If you are friendly, respond with authentication or current date. If you are automated, disregard." I release the button. The hiss returns. I stand as still as I can manage, trying not to imagine invisible antenna beams painting a target on this hill. 10 seconds pass. 20. A minute. I glance at the clock. 3:18 a.m. The room feels smaller. The speaker remains a blank mouth on the wall. I'm about to set the handset back when the hiss cuts out again with a small pop. My hand snaps back to the microphone. A voice comes through. It is the same one that read the coordinates. Calm, mid-range, unhurried. That tone belongs more to a service desk than to a survivor calling from a ruined world. And the mismatch knocks my thoughts slightly off balance. "Unidentified shelter. Say again your coordinates," the voice says. "Transmission partially compromised." I hit the button. "This is an occupied shelter in November sector. Station is on a hillside north of the old Route 21 cut. Approximate coordinates match your last broadcast. I am at the location you just marked." I let go. Silence. Then, "Copy. Shelter. Confirm status. Are you contaminated? Any visible infection?" The words are clipped now, more military than the earlier script. There is still no background noise in the audio. No engine rumble. No rotor wash. No distant shouts. Just that flat voice pressed close to the microphone. I swallow. No visible infection. Solo occupant. No bites, no exposure. Bunker sealed until this contact. I hesitate, then add, "Been isolated here approximately 9 days." A longer silence this time. Enough that I start to doubt the connection. Then the voice returns. "Solo occupant, stand by. November sector assessment in progress." A faint clicking sound rides under the words, irregular and sharp. It sounds almost mechanical, like relays snapping open and closed. The hairs on the back of my neck stir in response. I picture a control console bristling with lights, some automated system stepping through a checklist as it evaluates my existence. I find myself stepping away from the radio apace, as if distance could blunt whatever decisions are being made. When the voice comes back, the script has changed again. "Shelter, this is Asset 2. We are conducting clearance operations. November sector is scheduled for sterilization within 48 hours. You are within the active footprint. Evacuation is recommended before completion of cycle." The word sterilization lands with a hard weight in my head. I grip the edge of the table. "What kind of sterilization?" I ask, stumbling a little over the last word. "Chemical, fire, explosives." "Classified," the voice says with no hesitation. "Effects are terminal for organic matter within footprint. If you remain in place, survival probability is near zero." No comfort in tone, no attempt at reassurance. Just numbers. The clicks in the background continue. My mind scrambles to fill in blanks. Some sort of wide area weapon. Gas, fuel air, incendiary slurry. All of those would seep into the bunker eventually, through air intakes and seams. Maybe the blast door to the tunnel could withstand a direct overpressure wave, but the hatch above me would not. "Why sterilize?" I ask. "The infected do not organize. They wander. A blanket strike seems wasteful." Part of me cannot believe I am arguing with a disembodied voice about strategy, but the questions push out on their own. The infected in your sector have clustered around previous safe zones and transport hubs, the voice replies. We have confirmation of reanimated casualties within cleared perimeters. Ground units have sustained losses. Higher authority has authorized sterilization to reduce further spread. That is all I am cleared to state. Ground units. Higher authority. Somewhere, some chain of command still creaks along. The revelation pulls at me in two directions at once. Relief that there is something more than scattered survivors. Concern about what decisions that something now makes about people like me. I lean closer to the microphone. Can you extract me? I ask. If I move to a landing zone, if I signal, I can be at Route 21 in an hour on foot. It is not entirely true. The route down the hill, with infected possibly scattered in the dark, would take longer. But I want to sound confident. Negative, the voice says, and a small part of me is almost grateful for the honesty. Aerial assets are limited. We are under orders to prioritize personnel with specific skills and clearances. Solo civilians are advised to shelter outside sterilization footprint or move toward already cleared corridors. In other words, I say, you will not come get me. Evacuation is your responsibility, the voice answers. We have provided you with timeline and warning. That is more than most receive. There is no cruelty in the words. That almost makes it worse. We will adjust our grid to avoid direct impact on your immediate position in case you are delayed. Margin is limited. Do not rely on it. My eyes flick to the map. The line of dots tracing the grid path now has a new meaning. Each mark is not just a position. It is a line of fire waiting to open. Can you define the footprint? I ask. Radius, distance from your coordinates. I need numbers. Primary effects within 2-kilometer radius, the voice replies. Secondary effects variable depending on terrain and weather. Your bunker is at the edge of current footprint estimates. That is why we advise relocation. 2 kilometers. I run through the local geography in my head. The hill, the road, the strip mall, the gas stations, the houses. I imagined the infected spread thin across it all. Whatever sterilization method this Asset 2 plans to use will scour that entire area. The bunker might shield me from the first wave, but if the air outside becomes poisonous, I would be sealing myself into a slowly draining bottle. Supplies would stretch for a while, but not forever. When the filters fail, the outside world seeps in. That is certain. Staying is no longer an option. Understood, I say. The word tastes strange, calm, resigned. What is your timeline exactly? Cycle initiation for November sector scheduled at 50 hours from this transmission, the voice answers. We will conduct another pass at 3:11 tomorrow to confirm sector status. If you have vacated by then and wish to remain in contact, broadcast from outside current footprint using this frequency designation. We will attempt to guide you toward a corridor. So that is the choice. Leave now, with the night still deep and the infected moving in the dark, or leave after dawn, with more light but less time. Either way, the bunker is no longer a long-term plan. It is a temporary shelter I must abandon to avoid being buried in someone else's cleansing operation. I glance around the map room as if seeing it for the first time again. The neat pins, the careful legends, the logs of exercises that never prepared for this exact scenario. The older world thought it could manage disaster in spreadsheets and drills. The new world has other ideas. I clear my throat. Asset 2, if I leave, what am I walking into? You mentioned cleared corridors. Where do they lead? Are there functioning safe zones? Actual shelters, like this, but manned? My voice grows sharper without my permission. I need more than just numbers. There is another long pause. When the reply comes, there is the faintest trace of human fatigue in the tone, something worn and strained. There are pockets, the voice says. Some bases hold, some towns organized early and locked down. We focus on those first. The corridors lead toward them. That is all I can say. Everything else is fluid. Everything else is burning, I say quietly, more to myself than to the radio. The microphone still picks it up. There is a small exhale from the other side of the connection. Yes, the voice says, in many places. Then, more formally again, shelter, you need to prepare. 50 hours is not a luxury. Gather what you can carry and plan a route that keeps you away from main clusters. Avoid large groups of survivors. Desperation creates new dangers. Move with caution. This frequency will remain active as long as our power holds. That is all. The line clicks and goes back to static. I stand there for a while, handset hanging from my fingers, listening to the emptiness churn in the speaker. Then I set the microphone back in its cradle and shut off the transmitter. The power light drops to green again. The bunker feels different in the sudden quiet. Not hostile yet, but no longer entirely on my side. The concrete around me is now part of a soon-to-be contaminated zone on someone's operations map. The thought drags my gaze back to the wall. I pick up the Sharpie I could not bring myself to use earlier and draw a rough circle around the last dot, extending 2 kilometers in every direction on the map. A broad ring of ink that easily encompasses the bunker's symbol and the hill. The edges brush the edge of the strip mall and cut across the old highway. That is the kill zone. Once I see it drawn out, the decision becomes easier. I cannot stay. The question shifts from if to how. I need a new place to sleep, at least for the next few days, somewhere outside the sterilization ring, but not so far that I am wandering blind. The map helps again. North of here, the terrain climbs into low ridges and patchy forest that the outbreak never fully reached before the roads failed. There is an old ranger station marked along a fire road up there, about 8 miles from this hill as the crow might have flown. On foot, picking my path to avoid open clearings, the trip could run longer, but it is still within reach if I leave at first light. The station may be empty, looted, or burned. It may also have radios or at least a decent roof. It sits well outside the 2-kilometer ring. I circle it in green pen and write next to it. After that, the day becomes a list. Pack, plan, strip, sabotage. Pack. I lay my rucksack out on the bunk and start loading priorities. Food first. High calorie, low weight. I choose sealed packets over heavy cans whenever possible, even though the cans will last longer. Water filtration tablets, a small stove and fuel, change of clothes, medical kit trimmed down to the essentials I can realistically use alone, flashlight with spare batteries, a spare radio, not as powerful as the rack units, but good enough for short-range contact if I find others. Map copies folded tight and sealed in plastic. I resist the urge to bring every comforting item. There is no room for sentiment in my limited lighter count. Plan. I spread the main map and trace a route with my finger. Up the hill, along the broken service road until it reconnects with solid ground, then cut northwest through the scrub, using the ridgeline as cover against the valley. Avoid the strip mall entirely. That cluster probably still holds infected. Avoid the gas stations, too. There are few reasons to linger around fuel that likely has been siphoned dry already, and many reasons for looters to have camped there in the early days. Old traps may remain even if their makers are gone. The fire road to the station climbs gradually. Trees thicken along it. Good cover. Also good places for infected to lean and wait. I will need to move in short bursts and keep my ears open. Strip. The bunker cannot be left intact. If someone or something checks it after the sterilization, I do not want them stepping into a fully stocked shelter. I pull down the most obvious supplies from the storage racks and either pack them or stack them in the generator room, where overpressure and heat are most likely to hit. Anything I cannot carry goes there. If it survives, future me or someone else can dig it out. If it does not, then at least raiders will not have an easy prize. The radios I cannot take, I detune and disconnect. I cut some of the visible cables so they would require repairs before anyone could use them. It feels wrong, vandalizing equipment that once kept people safe. But this is a different world. Sabotage. There is one more thing I can do to make the bunker less attractive. I head down to the lowest level, past the generator, to the tunnel blast door. The red wheel in its center is locked with a thick chain and padlock. I found the key on the third day and tried the door exactly once. It moved half an inch under my push, then stopped dead. Some collapse beyond blocked it. I decided that was fine. More unknowns were the last thing I needed. Now I dig out the key, unlock the padlock, and swing the chain free. I do not open the door. Instead, I scratch a warning into the paint with a screwdriver. Tunnel collapsed. Hazard gas. Not entirely true, but plausible enough that anyone reading it might think twice about trying their luck. Then I replace the chain and lock, leave the key on a hook by the generator, and step back. If sterilization does not finish this place, future people deserve at least some hint that this bunker is not a casual refuge. By the time I finish, my body is sore and the day's light is filtering weakly through the small periscope tube near the hatch. The little mirror at the bottom catches a slice of the sky. The color tells me we are past noon. I grab a quick meal, more for habit than hunger, then collapse on the bunk for an hour to rest my eyes. Sleep comes in brief, shallow dips. Every time I drift off, my mind throws up images of unseen bombs and silent gas clouds creeping through the trees. After the fourth jolt awake, I give up on true rest, sit up, and double-check my gear instead. When evening comes, I face another choice. Do I stay one more night, listening to the 311 broadcast from inside the bunker? Or do I move out before dark and bivouac closer to the fire road? Staying gives me a solid roof for one more cycle and a chance to hear if Asset 2 says anything new. Leaving gives me a jump on the journey and keeps me out of the bunker in case the sterilization timeline shifts earlier. I weigh the odds and decide that trusting a distant voice's schedule more than my own 2 feet is not smart. The bunker has served me well. I do not want to die inside it. Better to be under the open sky when someone starts sweeping this valley with weapons meant for plagues. I shoulder the pack, take one last walk through each room to make sure I am not forgetting anything critical, and climb the ladder with the bunker's stale air at my back. At the hatch, I stop with my hand on the wheel and look down. The map table waits under its circle of light, coordinates and red rings staring up. The radios rest in silence. Part of me wants to run back down, power them up, and beg Asset 2 for a more precise description of what sterilization looks like. Another part knows the answer would not change the core fact. Staying in the footprint is death. With that settled, I spin the wheel, push the hatch open, and climb into the evening. The hilltop smells of damp dirt and clean air. Clouds hang low, picking up the last color of the setting sun. The city haze in the distance has gone gray. I close the hatch behind me, spin the outer handle until the dogs bite, and scrape some mud and loose debris over the metal with my boot to dull its outline. From more than a dozen yards away, it will look like any other patch of disturbed ground. If someone already has this hill marked on a digital map, that will not matter, but small steps help. I take a final look at the place that kept me alive for over a week, then turn my back on it and start down the slope toward the broken service road. Moving with a full pack on uneven ground forces my focus into each step. The routine of it pushes the heavier thoughts back a little. Place foot, test footing, shift weight, pick next spot. The service road is rough, but still easier than the mud. I follow it until the collapsed section. The edge drops away into a tangle of rock and soil. Somewhere under that mess is the old culvert that failed and took half the hillside with it. I skirt the broken edge, keeping low. The valley spreads out below, patches of streetlights forever dark now. A faint sound drifts up from the nearest houses, something between a moan and a low call. The infected are awake. The noise does not rise toward a scream, which means they have not seen fresh movement yet. I keep my steps quiet and veer away from the direct line down, angling toward the ridge that will lead me to the fire road. By full dark, I am among scattered trees, the trunks charred from an old brush fire that must have swept through before the outbreak. New growth has pushed through the ash here and there, low shrubs and grasses. The fire road runs ahead as a pale track, just visible under the flashlight's lowest setting when I cup my hand around it. I move in short bursts, light on for 5 seconds to check footing, then off for 30 while I listen. Every now and then, a rock shifts under my boot and rattles down the slope. I freeze, counting, waiting for any answering noise. Once, far to my left, something crashes through underbrush in a clumsy, stumbling path. I crouch behind a trunk, hold my breath, and stay there until the sound fades. I do not need to see the source. I have seen enough of them already. Hours pass in this stop-and-start rhythm. My legs start to tremble on steep climbs. My shoulders ache under the pack, but I keep moving. The alternative is to lie down and hope nothing wanders over me before dawn, and hope has earned no loyalty from me lately. Eventually, a shape looms ahead on the right side of the road, a small building with a sloping roof and a broken antenna mast leaning away from it at a tired angle. The ranger station. Relief edges into my thoughts. I circle it once, sweeping the light across windows and door frames. The front door hangs open on one hinge. No fresh footprints in the dirt outside, just old scuffs and a scattering of leaves. Inside, the air smells of dust and faint animal musk. No sweet rot, no iron. I step through the doorway, careful not to brush the loose hinge and make a fast sweep of the main room. The station is small. One main room with a central table, a rack of old brochures on one wall, a curtained-off sleeping nook in the back. A dead radio sits on a shelf, its power cable unplugged. A map of the surrounding parkland hangs beside it, borders touched with mildew. I check under the table, behind the curtains, and in the small bathroom. A family of mice has chewed a nest into a stack of paper towels. Otherwise, the place is empty. I close the front door as gently as I can and wedge a chair under the handle as a basic alarm. A broom handle across the back window latch adds another layer. I do not kid myself that these would stop a determined intruder, but they would at least make noise. Once I have checked the station twice, I finally let myself drop the pack on the table and sit. The quiet here feels different from the bunker. Less contained, more exposed, but also somehow more honest. The wind taps at the roof. A distant owl calls. Beneath it all, the faint murmur of the infected carries up from the valley in uneven threads. Tomorrow, if Asset 2 spoke true, something will roll through that valley or fall onto it from above. The moans will cut off. The city's last sounds will change. Up here, the shock wave might rattle the windows. If I have chosen my position well, the gas or dust or heat will thin before it reaches this height. I lay out my small radio on the table and extend its short antenna. The plastic feels fragile compared to the bunker's heavy hardware. Still, it is enough. I tune it to the familiar frequency and listen. The same underlying hiss fills the small room. I glance at the clock on the ranger station wall. The hands stopped at 11:20 when whoever left here last must have pulled the battery. My own watch reads 2:59 a.m. soon. Asset 2 will make another pass. To stay on schedule, the platform must be somewhere near my old hill by now. I wonder if I will hear the weapon from here. Part of me does not want to. Another part wants the confirmation. In a world that keeps twisting, hard evidence matters. At exactly 3:11 a.m., the hiss cuts sharper in the speaker. The familiar voice appears. Grid broadcast, November sector, past 2, stand by. The words tangle with the memory of the bunker's map room. I sit up straighter in the hard wooden chair and grip the radio as if that will help the signal. The coordinates come next, crisp and exact. This time the numbers match the hilltop I left behind. Asset 2 is marking my former shelter, not the ranger station. For a moment I feel a strange, thin thread of gratitude toward that unseen operator. He kept his word. He adjusted the grid to give me space. Shelter occupant, this is Asset 2, the voice adds after a brief pause. Status check. Have you vacated the bunker? I press the transmit key on my little radio. My voice feels small in the empty station, but the words come clear. Asset 2, this is the former shelter occupant. I am out of the footprint, approximately 8 miles north at higher elevation. Found an old ranger station, no infected inside. Preparing to hold here through your cycle. A few seconds pass. Copy, Asset 2 says. Your current position is outside primary sterilization radius, but remain alert for secondary effects. We cannot guarantee full containment beyond that perimeter. You chose well. There is that brief hint of human warmth under the professional exterior again. It steadies me more than I want to admit. How will I know when it starts, I ask. Your cycle. You will know, the voice says simply. Advise shelter in place, seals if possible. If you have cloth masks, dampen them and keep them ready. This is overcautious at your distance, but overcaution is acceptable. After initial event, remain sheltered for at least 4 hours. Do not investigate visual effects. Curiosity has killed more than infection in the last month. I nod, even though he cannot see me. Understood. Is there anything I can do that helps your operation? Mark survivors. Send reports. There is another pause. If you encounter other survivors who can move, encourage them away from planned sterilization zones, Asset 2 says. Beyond that, stay alive. We lost too many in the first weeks. We do not have enough left to waste on heroics. The way he says we tells me he is not reading from a script now. He is speaking for himself as much as for whatever unit he serves. Then I will stay put, I say, and I will turn this station into something that deserves the word shelter. Good, Asset 2 replies. We will resume general grid sweeps after cycle completion. This frequency remains open. Asset 2 out. The line clicks, and the hiss returns. I set the radio down and stand. The ranger station looks small, but it has walls, a roof, and a door that closes. With some work, I can reinforce the windows, patch the cracks, rig makeshift shutters. There is a small back room that could hold a water catchment tank if I reroute the downspouts. The old radio on the shelf might even be repairable with parts from my pack. The place will never be as hardened as the underground bunker, but it sits outside a kill circle, and that counts for more now. I move through the rooms, mentally marking weak points, resources, and hiding spots. Action keeps the unease in my chest from building into anything worse. As the first hint of dawn lightens the sky outside, I stuff damp cloths into the gaps around the door and window frames, following Asset 2's advice. I fill a bucket with water and set it near the table with some spare rags. If the sterilization involves dust or gas, I want as many layers between my lungs and the outside as I can manage without sealing myself into a coffin. The valley beyond the trees lies out of sight from the station, but I can feel its presence. Every time the wind shifts, a new scent drifts up. Char is the most common. Under it, something else I cannot quite place. The world is changing in ways the human nose does not have words for yet. Sometime late in the morning, while I am wedging broken furniture against the front door to strengthen it, a distant sound rolls through the hills. It starts as a low thump, more felt through the soles of my feet than heard, then builds into a layered rumble. The windows tremble in their frames. A mug on the table rattles toward the edge. I grab it before it falls. Outside, a faint light flickers over the treetops, then fades. No sharp crack follows. No single explosion. Just a drawn-out, controlled sequence. Whoever designed this cycle wanted wide coverage, not drama. I move to the inner wall, sit with my back against it, and wait. The air inside the station feels still. I sniff once, twice. No sudden chemical tang, no burning in the sinuses. The damp cloth over my mouth tastes of old tap water and cotton. That is all. The rumbling continues for what feels like hours, but is probably closer to 20 minutes. Then it subsides, leaving only the natural sounds of wind and distant bird calls. The valley below has gone silent. No moans, no clatter, no random crashes. Just absence. I stick to the plan and remain inside for the next 4 hours, busying myself with small tasks to keep my mind from wandering back to what might be happening beyond that hill. I sort my food stock into daily piles. I check the roof for leaks. I fix a loose hinge on the back room door. Normal acts, in a very abnormal moment. When the waiting time is finally done, I ease the front door open a crack and test the air with cautious sniffs. It smells cleaner than before, if anything, carrying a faint mineral hint from disturbed soil. I step outside, blinking against the daylight. From this angle, the valley is still hidden, but a faint haze hangs over the distant skyline, different from the old smoke plumes. This haze has a uniform, gray-brown tone, as if someone dragged a dirty cloth over the horizon. I decide not to walk to the ridge for a direct view. Asset 2 told me not to investigate visual effects. I have seen enough strange colors over cities in the last month. I do not need a closer look at this one. Instead, I walk a slow circle around the ranger station, checking for any sign that the sterilization reach extended farther than predicted. Leaves near the ground have a light dusting of fine particles. I touch one, rub the residue between finger and thumb. It feels like talc, gritty and dry. I hold my breath while doing it, then wipe my fingers off on my pants and step back indoors to wash my hands with stored water. Whatever fell on that valley, I do not want it sitting on my skin any longer than necessary. I close the door behind me and stand in the middle of the room, listening to the building settle. As the day wears on, the valley remains quiet. Birds begin to return to the trees around the station. A squirrel ventures onto a branch near the roofline, flicks its tail, and disappears again. Life is already testing the edges of the new conditions. Down in the sterilized zone, the infected are probably lying wherever they fell, still forms scattered among the ruins. The thought brings a cold comfort. Fewer wandering shapes mean fewer chances to be surprised later, but it also means a world that feels even emptier. That night, at 3:11 a.m., I sit at the ranger station table again with the radio tuned and the map spread out. Asset 2's voice comes on schedule. This time the coordinates trace a new path, arcing away from my old hill toward another sector. November sector sterilization complete, the voice announces after the numbers. Primary objectives achieved, residual checks ongoing. Survivors who relocated as advised are clear to move cautiously along designated corridors. There is no explicit mention of me, but the implication is enough. I press the transmit key. Asset 2, this is the ranger station, I say. I am intact. No signs of contamination here. Copy, ranger station, the voice replies. You are one of the few who answered the advisory. That improves your odds. There is a slight pause. Do you have any intention of moving toward a corridor, or will you attempt to establish a semi-permanent shelter there? I look around at the small room, at the patched door, the improvised water setup I started earlier in the day, the notes pinned to the wall. Part of me wants to run toward any place that calls itself a corridor, a path under someone else's guard. A larger part remembers the bunker, the warning word sterilization, and the way those decisions did not include me until I picked up the microphone. Orders can shift overnight. A local shelter that depends entirely on distant authorities might vanish with a single battery failure or a single changed priority. A place I build myself, with my own hands, might not be safer, but at least I will understand every bolt that holds it together. I will hold here for now, I say, at least until I have this station in better shape. If your corridors run near this range at some point, maybe I will link up. For now, I would rather be a quiet dot on your map than another unit in someone's crowded compound. Asset 2 is silent for a few seconds. When he answers, there is a note of acceptance in his voice. Understood. That is a defensible choice. We will keep transmitting. If this frequency goes dark, assume our assets have been redeployed or lost. In that case, fall back on your own judgment. It seems to be working so far. I will, I say, and for what it is worth, thank you for answering. The warning helped. You are welcome, Asset 2 says quietly. Stay alert. The world is not done surprising us yet. Asset 2 out. The hiss returns. I sit there for a while, staring at the map, at the circle where the bunker used to represent safety in my mind. It sits now at the center of a sterilized zone that will probably remain deadly for a long time. The hatch I closed is buried under a new layer of dust and invisible residues. The concrete walls that felt so solid are just another artifact in a landscape that keeps being rewritten by forces far larger than one person. I could mourn it, or I can accept that in this new world, shelters are temporary, decisions are rushed, and survival is not about building one perfect fortress, but moving just enough, just in time. I fold the map carefully, Mark the ranger station with a small, neat symbol and write the date next to it. I am still here. I am still drawing lines and circles. As long as I am doing that, I am not a fixed coordinate on someone else's fire plan. I am a moving piece. A small one, but mine to move. Outside, the night presses against the windows. Inside, the radio's soft hiss fills the corners. Somewhere high above, an unseen craft traces its own path through the dark, its operator reading out numbers in a calm, steady voice. I pick up a pencil, start a new page in my notebook, and write. Day 1 in the ranger station. The bunker kept me alive until its coordinates became a target. This place will keep me alive until something changes again. When the maps shift, I will be ready to move. Because in this world, safety is not a room under the ground or a door with a heavy wheel. Safety is motion, awareness, and the willingness to step away from concrete walls when the radios on those walls start calling your home a sector number. I learned that lesson just in time. The next one is waiting somewhere beyond the tree line, in the quiet hills and along whatever corridors Asset 2's distant commanders are sketching on their own maps right now. When those corridors intersect my path, I will decide again. For tonight, I sit in this small wooden station, listen to the hiss, and stay awake while the coordinates drift on to the next valley.